Hey guys, welcome to my unit curriculum presentation, Nibs and Tips. This is going to be a brief overview of what I want my curriculum to accomplish for my unit. This was designed for graphic design at my high school for grades 10 through 12. It could be applicable to other classes, but graphic design is what I've designated it for. Rationale and goals. The gist of this is that I want students to really take a look at handwriting and typeface and understand their interactions, their importances. And I have that all written out here, and I can read it to you very quickly. But essentially, I want them to understand the hard way, but I also want them to understand the advantages of modern technology. So to understand what it means to put a pen to paper and to physically write something, and also what it means to put a mouse click to a font grid and create their own typeface. I want them to develop a new understanding of processes in which they participate daily but don't often take the time to really pay attention to. So examining the subconscious, having them pay attention to things that they otherwise, passively walk on by. They read, but don't really pay attention to. And then also for them to learn a new program. In this case, they will be utilizing FontStruct, and it was selected mainly because of its ease of access and its usability. It's very, very easy to use. It's something that I can easily teach, and students will be able to interact with. Big idea: the communicative properties of the written word, literally and illustratively. Comparison and contrast of the traditional written word by hand versus written words of typeface. Written is in quotation marks there because obviously when you're using typeface, you're not physically writing, you're typing. And that's something that I want them to look at. What does it mean to write? Is writing just a physical action, or is it a word that stands for the symbology of putting words to a surface, etc. Essential questions. What does it mean to communicate? What are some ways in which communication is made possible? In what ways is written communication illustrative? How do fonts communicate beyond a surface level of consciousness? Where do we see this occurring? And what is the relevancy of handwriting today with the advances in modern technology and its availability? And the idea here is just to create discussion and to open them up to some ideas that they may not have otherwise thought about or considered. Key concepts. It's going to be the review of old skills, for example, print and cursive, and then adding new skills and mediums. So in this case, calligraphy and digital font design. Print and cursive, this is something that I would love to tell you that they interact with on a daily basis, and maybe for print they do. Cursive, maybe not so much, other than, when they have to take notes in my class, because I've got a lovely print script combination going on there. And then calligraphy is something that very few have interacted with, as well as digital font design. But a lot of this isn't so much about the physical skills that they're gaining, because while those are important, what I'm really wanting them to look at is, I want them to think. Okay, so in this case, we've got the new vocabulary, research, digital media interaction, development of opinions, justifications, reasoning, and subconscious thought. I want them to think. That's the biggest part. All right, so for their objectives, we are going to start off with a history of writing. There's an excellent TED talk by one of the youngest, if not the youngest ever certified penmans in the world. He makes a great argument for handwriting. I love it. Their assignment is going to be they're going to practice print, script is how I've written it, but cursive, and calligraphic alphabets and phrases. Essentially, they were going to write letters, both uppercase and lowercase, repeatedly until they get them quote unquote right. You remember in when we were little in elementary school and they taught us on those 3-lined dotted line papers, and we had to make everything go to the top line and back down to the bottom line and all of that. Yeah, that's what they're doing. And it's kind of fantastic because they whine a little bit, and I don't know. Maybe I'm sadistic, and I just really enjoy their whining and making them go through it because they are learning. They are. They're working through it, and they're learning, and it's wonderful. They're also learning, muscle movement, hand training, and they're also paying attention to detail. If nothing else, this really forces them to pay attention to every stroke they make. Somewhere in the background I hear, every move you make. Anyway, this is why I don't sing. All right, Helvetica, they're going to watch a documentary. This is going to take about 2 class periods or so. Helvetica is a fascinating documentary. It's about an hour and 20-ish minutes long. They're going to have a follow-along sheet that they do here, and this is to hold them accountable as much as it is to get them thinking while they're watching the film. We have a lot of distractions available to us now that maybe at one point in time we didn't have, although sleeping is still a popular option. And I don't want them to do that. I really want them to pay attention. It's a fantastic documentary, and I don't show videos just to show videos. I show them to really back up what it is we're learning about. And then they're also going to have a short assignment that takes place outside of class. They're going to be doing 2 things. One, they're going to find 3 situations of not illustrative typeface, just 3 situations of typeface and how that typeface is communicating, whether that's literally, illustratively, both, etc. And then they're also going to go on a scavenger hunt for Helvetica in their life and to find out just exactly how much Helvetica is haunting them. And that is always fantastic. Okay, illustrative communication. We are going to have another video that's typography off book. It's by PBS. Again, it's about 16-ish minutes, I think. It's got some of the same artists that we saw in the Helvetica documentary we're seeing again, so you've got that scaffolding relationship. The assignment in class for them is to do a dafont.com study. They are going to be practicing how to properly download fonts onto a computer, which is a nice skill and something that they can take from classroom to home use as well. And they're also going to be adding to their vocabulary. I've given them a bunch of really obscure words that I want them to find, and in them finding the definition on dictionary.com, they're also finding how do I want to illustrate that, and that's where Dafont comes in. So we're really looking at typeface as illustration now instead of just communication for literal purposes. And then they're also going to have a short assignment, again, outside of class. They're going to find text being used illustratively. It's going to be very similar to the typeface subject matter, and I guess technically we could still use the same typefaces that we did before, but I kind of want them to find new ones. So, hey, this is why we do this rough draft version of things, right? So we can work out the kinks. And then finally, they are going to develop their own typeface with fontstruct.com. This is where they're going to develop uppercase, lowercase, the whole gamut of a typeface. And the beauty of this is that they will be able to not only download it to their own computer for usage, but they can also upload it to websites like Dafont and give back to the artistic community. Prior knowledge. Generally speaking, for our first assignment, they're going to have the prior knowledge of what they do every day as far as writing is concerned and what they used or learned in elementary school. Something that's a little more abstract would be any painting skills they have because of the brush pen stroke that they will use for the calligraphic lines. For Helvetica, they may have encountered Helvetica. Most of them haven't, but they have encountered Helvetica's knockoff, also known as Arial. And that's one thing that always kind of gets them a little bit more interested is seeing the relationship of, oh, I've seen this thing this whole time and I had no idea. For the illustrative communication, at this point, the first 2 assignments will assist them as previous knowledge, but other than that, not necessarily a ton of pre-knowledge. And then for typeface development, I don't really expect them to have much prior knowledge as far as how to do this. This is all going to kind of be brand new. Easier, or not easier, but relatively simple to learn the process of, but again, not a lot of beforehand experience. The exemplars, I encourage you to watch all of these. They're fantastic. The first and second ones are all, like I said, about 16 minutes, less than 20 minutes, and then Helvetica is about an hour and 20-ish minutes. Timeline, 4 to 6 weeks. Why is there a 2-week difference? Because I don't always know how my classes are going to react to the skills that they're learning. If they take to it like a fish to water, then it may only take 1 week instead of taking 2 weeks. But I always want to allow for that extra time. So for a brief history of writing, we have 1 class period. For the TED Talk, we are going to watch it, and then we will have a class discussion. For the actual assignments, they will have 1 to 2 weeks. Again, it's going to depend on how well they take to, the idea of writing by hand. Very, very specifically and accurately. Helvetica, the video takes 2 class periods. That's what it does. Sometimes, I guess it could possibly take 3 depending on how well it goes, but 2 class periods essentially, and then they'll have their video follow along sheet that they do during that. And then they will have their homework assignment. I'm going to give them 2 days out of class because I understand that some of them are busy or they work, they have things going on. Ultimately, they're human beings and they have lives. Illustrative communication, we have 1 class period for the typography off book, again, something that we will have a class discussion about upon its conclusion. And then their assignment is going to be the DaFont.com study, where they seek out illustrative text and create justifications for why they chose the typeface they did for the word that they were having to illustrate. And that I allow about 2 class periods for. And then again, they'll have their short assignment 2 days outside of class, same reasons as before. And then for the FontStruct, they will have the tutorial, which doesn't take very much time of their life, and then 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how they react to interacting with the software and really figuring things out. I mean, you wouldn't think that 26 letters takes a long time to develop, but when you think you've got 26 letters and you've also got numbers 0 through 9 and possibly other symbols on top of also having lowercase letters, I mean, there's a lot, and there's a chance technically even that we might take more than 3 weeks. This isn't something I've taught before, so this is just kind of a rough estimate. I'm not sure how long it'll take. And then finally, with the assessment tools, the informal, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Class discussion, one-on-one student interactions and conversations. And then for formal assessment, that's going to depend on the assignment. Some of it is going to be basic completion points for things like class participation and the follow-along, things like that. Whereas I'm looking to use the Google Doc questionnaires and surveys for them to have them complete their self-evaluations, and that's also something that I can reflect on and leave my comments with when I evaluate them for their formal assessment for their final product. And that's something that I'll have examples with, obviously, as we continue. And that's all I have for you. Thanks, guys, for listening. I appreciate it.